that all these philosophical movements and religious movements, they come from human experience, and they are so old, and they have so much knowledge of the human being and what helps and what doesn't help. So of course we have to relate to that and take everything that we can in order to make people feel better and become more whole.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Light Haven, the podcast for exploring well-being, spirituality, mysticism, astrology, and energy. My name is Ruth, mystery student towards the awakening of consciousness, and Bianca, who typically co-hosts, is away spending some lovely family time over the summer break. In New Zealand, our summers are short and looked forward to fondly every year. We try to make the most of them. So Bianca, we miss you, but we love that you are enjoying the sun and well-needed family time. The title of this episode is All is Mind. Mystical meets practical. The Buddhists say all is mind. And I agree with them on how important our psychology is towards having a successful and meaningful life. Today, I have the good pleasure of hosting trauma therapist Katharina Turi. Katharina specializes in transgenerational trauma, end-of-life care, and grief counseling. She is training in early childhood trauma by Dami Charf, who has a method that involves body-focused trauma therapy. Also, Rita Sandow, who has a method that teaches something called somatic experiencing. She's also trained in foot reflexology massage and craniosacral therapy and many other skills and training history that I couldn't list them all here. Our paths crossed, and she and her husband have come over from Germany. They're on holiday here. I feel so blessed to have been able to arrange an interview. Hello, Katharina. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Now, our listeners would probably love to hear a little bit more about your background, how long you've been practicing, how you got into your line of work, and what led you down the path of grief and trauma counseling and therapy.
Okay, so my name is Katharina Turi. I come from Berlin, and I have practice in Berlin, where, as you said, I specialized in trauma and grief. And in the beginning, I was training for becoming a teacher. And then when I was starting practicing, I felt that my calling is more trying to help people when they have problems instead of teaching people and telling them where they made a mistake and giving them bad marks.
I love that.
So at the time, I didn't really know where I was going. So I went to a person that was a family therapist, trained by the approach of Virginia Satir. And I had 2 or 3 sessions there, and I thought that's what I want to do.
Wow.
So I gave up everything and changed and got another education, and am really happy that I found this path.
That's amazing. So what is Virginia Satir all about? What's her methodology? Just out of curiosity, and maybe some of our listeners want to know as well.
Yeah, she is one of the leading ladies of the family therapy approach, and it's a humanistic psychology based on the assumption that every human being is worth something without having to prove it.
Right.
And also that every human being, if Like she tries to use the metaphor of a garden. Like every plant, when it gets watering, it grows and it will become a beautiful flower. So every human being that might be in a crisis or have problems can find the answers in oneself if assisted by someone, or if the surrounding is in a fun way so that you can grow.
That's amazing. And when you set out to help people, was there any kind of personal crisis or something, or someone you knew where you could observe someone struggling that made you inspired to want to do this?
Mm-hmm. So I had a friend who said, well, if you're not sure if you want to continue this path, and if you're in really trying to find out and you're struggling with this, and I really didn't feel great during the period before it changed, she said, go to this family therapist and go and have 1-2 sessions there and try to find what you want. And I went there and I found out this is what I want to do. So this great friend helped me. And also the way I was being treated during these 2 sessions by this therapist, who later became my teacher, just opened my eyes, so to say.
Wow. So by witnessing how this therapy was able to provide an avenue for your own transformation, you became inspired to want to offer the same support to other people.
Yes. And I knew that in order to be able to do that, I had to follow an education and also work on myself and work around the things that I had to solve, having grown up the way I've grown up.
That's amazing, because sometimes you hear, and I don't know if this is a myth or not, but people often say that sometimes the therapist needs therapy or the counselor, they counsel everyone, but there's no one to counsel themselves. With the training that you've received, can you use those methodologies on yourself, or do you also need someone else?
Both. So the training I received, the major issues were dealt with because we did a lot of self-experiencing. All the methods I use, we have used them on ourselves. But then when I started to work with trauma more and more, and also with grief counseling, it sometimes can be a heavy, I don't want to say burden, but sometimes you realize that you need the support of somebody else as well. As I tell people, if you want to overcome trauma, if you want to work with trauma, there is so many experiences that you can't deal with by yourselves. There's a lot you can do by yourself, but sometimes you need the assistance of another person. And I'm completely persuaded that working as a therapist and staying healthy in my mind and in my heart and with my body, I need to do a lot of things. And
Absolutely.
One of them is to go and to supervision. I do that regularly. And there I can talk to my supervisor about clients I'm stuck with or whatever, or who really touched my heart, and I still feel something
Like a personal emotional impact?
Exactly. And also sometimes you assist people going through things that remind you of something that you thought you were through, but that it comes up and you feel, maybe I'm not that neutral to that.
Right.
So in order to be really good at assisting people, you need to take good care of yourself as well.
That's great in one respect, that you are, through your line of work, continually prompted to access whatever resources you have or external resources to stay healthy and stay your best so you can continue on. I guess since you've been practicing for some time, your view of human behavior and psychology, and of course the physiological connection as well, all of this may have changed over time through your studies and through your practice. Are there any unexpected things that you've learned that have shaped how you view human behavior and life in general?
Oh, big question. Yeah, first of all, during my education, what was mind-blowing for me was when we did something like similar to psychodrama, where you deal with a certain thing of a person in that person's life, and other people represent the father, the mother, the sister, or whoever, the grandfather. And we did some exercises where different generations were touched. And what really struck me was how much trauma in all of these sessions came up that was really in our society, in our families, due to the Second World War and also due to the separation of the two Germanys. And so that brought me onto the path of trauma. And it was really mind-blowing for me because I could see and understand why my parents were the way they were, being traumatized children during the war, and what they could and what they couldn't give me. And then also I experienced that I wasn't alone, because at the other sessions this came up as well in different shades and different problematics, but you could feel the energy every time when trauma was involved going down.
Wow.
And that it still gives me goosebumps sometimes to think about that. And that made me really want to go deeper into this transgenerational traumatization.
That is amazing. Yes, I definitely believe that trauma is multi-generational, and it doesn't matter if it's exactly the same problem, but it's the impact of that problem, and the impact carries on in different ways, like a monster that wears different masks, but it's the same character who's living on. And it's up to the person who has the willpower and the proper support and methods that can break the cycle. But yes. Very fascinating what you said about, what did you call that kind of therapy? Was it group generational or
no,
psychogenerational?
I said it's similar to psychodrama.
Psychodrama.
And it's just a method that in German it's called Familienstellen, and like where people are used as representatives of a certain person in your familial circle. You choose them, and then they sort of go into the energy of that person. It doesn't matter if they are dead or alive, and then there's an enactment and things come up.
Right. That's the thing that really fascinates me about that is in the spiritual movement, which has all kinds of interesting new modalities that are attracting people that are looking for something alternative. They have something called constellation families. And I came across this modality and I thought, this is strange, what's this? But that was from the view of, they had some different kinds of flavors to it. Now I know where it's from. So this must be, the constellation families is an offshoot of what you're calling psychodrama.
Well, there are so many different sides of this, and also different people who are representing it. But the method I learned was according to Virginia Satir, and
Right.
like I think she was a great person and really started off something great. She was an American, but then she traveled all over the world and did what was doing.
That's awesome. The other thing that I thought of is how your being involved in this therapy made you reflect about your parents. And if I heard correctly, maybe evoked a sense of forgiveness or sympathy maybe towards...
Well, let's say, first of all, it evoked a sense of understanding, which doesn't mean that you're less hurt by what happened to you or what they couldn't give you. It still hurts, and I always evaluate that with my clients, because understanding that maybe they weren't able to give you that doesn't mean that you feel immediately better, because there's still a lack. And then you have to look what can you give yourself, or who else can give you something nowadays from what you haven't had, in order to heal, in order to become more whole. And then maybe you get to the point where you say, okay, and I forgive them, whatever they did. But I think it's not necessary. People can also go through the world, because some deeds are really sort of unforgivable.
Right.
They can say, okay, I understand, and maybe I don't take them to court or whatever, but they can still feel, I'm still mad at them, and I'm still...
Right.
But I know now that I can go on with what I've gone through, and I can deal with whatever comes next as injuries or something in an even stronger way, because I know I've dealt with stuff.
Yeah, the emotions have to be validated and made space for. They're real, and suppressing them is not the answer, for sure.
And as I have also done end-of-life care, I know that the ideal that is behind it is that you go through things before you die, and that you let go, or that you also forgive. But not all people are able to reach that point. And I think it's also okay to validate that and leave it as it is. Because, we can only be as human as we are. And it's much more authentic to be with the emotions we have than to follow an idealistic idea.
Yeah, just acknowledging it and allowing what is to be. That is what it is.
And that's really a sentence that you mentioned there that I always repeat and take up. It is what it is. And that is also something, if you do grief counseling, you can't fight against death. It happened, and you sort of have to find a way to deal with it. So it is what it is. That doesn't mean that you are not allowed to be angry about it, or that you can't be sad, or that you can't be also happy for all the good times you had. But it is what it is. And of course, it's easier if you go through certain processes to be at ease and in peace with something, but that's not up to everybody.
That's right. So the first step towards healing and finding a way forward is that acceptance part of it.
Exactly. First of all, maybe observe what's happening to you. Like if you feel angry, oh, okay, I feel angry. Where do I feel it? Where in my body? And that's the body-focused approach. Where in the body do I feel the anger? It's like a big knot in my stomach, and it wants to go into action. Then I allow people to express it in a very slow motion way, so that it can feel it. It can go through their body, and it can leave the body, and they feel released and less tense. But that's something in trauma therapy, Everything you have experienced by trauma is written in your body. There's even a book by Bessel van der Kolk who says the body keeps the score.
I've heard of that book.
So even if you're in your mind, you're already thinking, okay, I know this has happened to me and I know what I had to do and I know how I overcame it. But still, in certain situations, your body might act up. And that's because it's written in your body and it comes from a different part of your brain that you react to certain, we call it triggers. And then you're back into it, even though you thought, yeah, but I know about this and it's over. I know it, but at the moment, or you hear certain sounds or a certain, you smell a certain aroma or whatever, it might come back to you and you fall into as if it was happening to you again right now.
Is there an easy way that people can release those trapped emotions in their body at home, or must they go to a qualified therapist? I know that's a difficult question for me to ask you because that's your profession.
No, it's a very valid question, and it depends, I would say, if how stable you are in your life, how much support you have around you, and how severe the traumatization was. There are some things, if you want to deal with it by yourself, you might fall deeper into it and you don't even know it's happening to you. And then you would need somebody else, another person, to regulate you, to get you out of it. And so usually people who come to me, they know that they have tried to deal with it by themselves and they couldn't get further in their journey. So they come and sometimes they feel ashamed that they need help. A lot of traumatized people are people who learned to do everything by themselves. And it's really hard for them to accept assistance.
Because they feel safe if they are looking after themselves.
That's it. And also, if they have had childhood trauma or relational trauma, they have experienced that what they get from outside is something that hurts you. So how could they go somewhere and trust in that person to assist you in getting better? So that's a real dilemma.
Tough one.
So some people just get into isolation and they don't have that many relationships, and that's really sad. And some people later on in life come and they say, I want to change this. I only have that much amount of time left and I want to get through. And then when they come and they start handling things differently, they also get through a stage of grievance about what they have lost in life because of that, and which they can't get back. So that's always really, really touching when they realize it. And there it is very important also to have somebody who's holding your emotions with you and who's assisting you in, because I think they only are able to allow this grievance because there's somebody giving it space.
Wow, and that should, I guess, prompt anyone who has been struggling to seek help sooner rather than later so they can get back their life.
Exactly. And also, I would say, if you have tried and you haven't found the right assistance, try again. And with your experience of what didn't help you and what didn't give you something better, the next time you're looking for somebody, you might be more experienced, and just don't give up seeking assistance. Just find the right person.
I think that's really hard for a lot of people. I know people that are still trying to find the right assistance and have tried a lot of different avenues and counselors. And of course, I told them, don't give up, you need to keep trying. But I think for them, they're at a loss as to how can they find the right assistance if they've tried so many avenues, and because you have to try for a period of time, at what point can they be sure? How many sessions before they know this is an appropriate modality for their issue?
Okay, so if you're dealing with trauma, first of all, it is maybe good to get to know something about trauma, to read about it, and then you will see that most trauma specialists say talking therapy can only go as that way, and for trauma, in order to be dealt with in a sufficient way, it needs to include the body. It needs, because what happens when you are traumatized, very often a part of your brain gets off, and the memory of the trauma isn't memorized in the logical part, but it has touched your five senses. And if you want, and afterwards, since the memory hasn't reached your logical brain, the neocortex, you have no history that is recorded there, lying there, but you know something is happening every time I do this or that. And in order to get to that, you need to have included your senses. So creative therapy is a very good way, because and a lot of artists, if you look at their works of art, you see that for them it was therapy.
Right.
It touches a different area of your brain, and then when it comes up again and it is touched, and it is maybe it has come out in form of a picture, then you memorize it on a different part of your brain. And it helps you, like, to get through it, and next time to react in a different way. And especially if it is relational trauma, if you really want to get away from the circle of always ending up with the same people that are not good for you in a relationship, you know it's not good for you. You maybe know already how to get out of it, but maybe you don't find the person that would be good and secure for you. So if you have attachment issues, make sure this person who is a therapist also has some knowledge of attachment theory and the different types of attachment and how to install secure attachment.
This is very helpful. So someone with a particular issue, first of all, they should become informed about that issue, and they should make sure that the therapist is trained in the type of issue that they're having.
Well, someone who, if it is connected with trauma, I would suggest that it is somebody who hasn't had only a logical training, like speech therapy and so on. It's not only logical, but who is only working on that level. That's And then also, if you start to get more informed, you will immediately respond to certain things that are said, or certain methods that are suggested. And I think you will know, if you trust yourself, what speaks to you. And then you should follow your instinct.
Very good. And I loved how you said that the body can't be kept out of the therapy, that it needs to be included. If there's trauma trapped somewhere in the body, then that needs to be part of the treatment.
And the reaction, if you get close to trauma, is always a bodily reaction. Like if you get into deep trauma in a session, somebody will say, "Oh, I feel so sick. I feel so sick. I think I want to throw up." And it's a response of your body, of your vagal system, and this is important to take it into account,
right?
And to know about this, that it might happen.
Very interesting. And in your professional opinion, what exactly causes trauma? I know we were speaking about it earlier, and you mentioned that it's not necessarily the incident, though that plays a part, but it's the person's perception or how they react to the incident as well.
Well, okay. So first of all, trauma in the Greek language means wound. That means something has injured you. And it can be one incident, then it is an acute trauma, or which is an event that for you has been too sudden, too strong, too severe, and too overwhelming. That means that the means you had at the moment of time that happened to you weren't enough to cope with it. So it overwhelmed you, and you felt feelings of helplessness, of losing control and all that. And for some people, this might be falling off a bike, and for some people, it might be much more severe from what happened to you from the outside. And then there are relational traumata, childhood trauma, for example, where you have neglect or physical or sexual abuse, or being shamed all the time, or being blamed all the time, or just you had a lot of siblings and you were never seen. It was, for some people, it sounds small, but it is very important to be seen and to be taken into account, to be loved. So these are traumata that deal with the relational aspect. And especially for those, it is important that you find a therapist who is able and who you are able to build a solid relationship with, and who's able to give you a secure space where you can grow and where you can also be vulnerable. That's the most important, and feel that you can be there with your
vulnerability.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And that the person can hold it and can go with it.
So we're seeing that trauma is not necessarily caused by extreme violence, though it could be. It could be caused by a range of emotional factors, like you mentioned, neglect, being shamed. And to me, that's where intergenerational trauma can happen, because the parents will treat their children how they were treated. And then it can be from the environment as well, being lost with not having anyone acknowledging you. And could it also be the interpretation of the events as well? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, because sometimes when we have experienced trauma and we get into a new relationship and something is happening, somebody is just not responding to you because this person is sitting somewhere concentrated on a book or whatever, and you think this person is neglecting me, he's ignoring me, or she is ignoring me, and this person is just having another focus.
Right.
You're misinterpreting what's going on because of what you have gone through in your childhood.
Yes, so you project the lens of the trauma onto the situation.
And very often it's interesting what you said, that you repeat what you have learned from your parents, and very often, and that's touching me a lot, young mothers come to me and they say, oh, I've done that and I felt like my mom and I never wanted to do that. Mm-hmm. And that was the moment where I knew I want to deal with it, and I don't want to repeat this sort of behavior.
It's a noble commitment. It's not easy.
I'm not saying it is, and even if you have understood it, but with your brain, not to do it again and again, it's just hard work. And people say, like, our brain is always able to develop but things that have been installed in you for so long and that you've been repeating and repeating, someday it needs at least 100 times that you do it differently in order to be the automatic highway you go into when you react to something. So if the stress level is high, which for young parents always is, you fall back onto the things you have known. And all the more it is important that you look at it and get support in order to find new paths.
Absolutely. In one of our other episodes, we talked about the concept of acceptance. We did touch on it here as well, the idea of letting go. And for people to learn about a kind of philosophy that can improve their resilience, their response to life events, would you say there is a therapeutic version of this philosophy of acceptance and letting go in terms of the self-help techniques or the methods that you offer to your patients?
I think most of the trauma therapists have come to understand that things like mindfulness, like visualization, imagination, using a safe space, going into the safe space, all that is really helpful, and they use it in their sessions as well, as I do. And like sometimes it's important, like if somebody's really upset and things are coming up, sometimes it helps just to tell the people, put your feet on the ground, feel the back of your chair, observe how you're breathing. And once they do that, it goes down, the amount of hyper arousal. So these are very basic but very important things to do. And of course, the more you practice that, the easier it comes to you. I've been listening into one of your podcasts where you said that something really dramatic happened to you.
Yes.
And that it was of big help to you to know that you could go into that space where you felt safe and okay. And then that's something that Peter Levine, the somatic experiencing, is calling pendulation.
Okay.
So that means you go into a safe space or you go into a feeling where you remember, I was at the ocean and it was such a great feeling or whatever. And then you allow yourself to go to the thing that really, really upset you. And then you go back. And it's good if you have somebody to help you do that. You did it all by yourself and it worked. But sometimes people need assistance. And so that's a principle called pendulation, where you go back and forth. And every time you might be able to go through a part of that emotion that's really hurtful to you a little bit more. And it just gets out of your body. So that's one thing. Or the other method connected to is titration. So only go into what has been really hurtful for you that much of a time. And therefore it's also very helpful if you have somebody to assist you. And but also taking care of your body, making your body healthy. It gives you much more resilience towards whatever is happening to you, and also to deal with what has happened to you. So if you can do things like yoga or qigong or tai chi or whatever it is that is good for you, do that. It always helps. I've lost a bit track of what your question was.
It was around what are the techniques and therapeutic methods that are similar to that philosophy that comes from a lot of Eastern religion around letting go and acceptance. So what is the therapeutic version of that, if any? And I love that you mentioned pendulation, that this is an actual practice that is used in therapy, or it's something that's offered to patients. and that this is something that people can also learn to do from meditation, because the mind is the same. So you can have different methods in different parts of the world, but we all have the same mechanics of our mind.
Yeah, so I think all these methods have diverged, do you say that? Have gotten into trauma therapy. They've all been taken up and soaked into it.
Yes, that's right. So trauma therapy incorporates all kinds of methodologies, because if you adopt something and you find that it works for trauma, then you can use it, and then you have another method in your toolkit, and different people, I guess, need different things and maybe a combination.
And I think that all these philosophical movements and religious movements, they come from human experience, and they are so old, and they have so much knowledge of the human being and what helps and what doesn't help. So of course we have to relate to that and take everything that we can in order to make people feel better and become healthier and more whole into account. And I think that's something that is happening in a lot of therapeutic approaches.
And I'm glad for that. I think our listeners might be interested in any success stories you may have. And I know obviously your practice involves confidentiality, so you wouldn't be able to give maybe too many details. But I'm wondering, have you seen any sort of life transformation over the years of your practice? And what would you say was the essence of what enabled them to overcome?
Well, I'm a fan of looking at the little things. And if somebody comes and he is or she is currently in a very in a relationship that is not good for him or her, and we work together, and this person can separate him or herself from that person, and then we work together for some more, and this person meets somebody else and sees very soon, oh, this is not a person that is good for me, so I won't go into it, and then meets another person and then starts a really secure and healthy relationship. I mean, for me, that's the best.
That's amazing.
And
that's a stupendous result.
And so that's something that makes me really happy. Or what else? I've had a client who came to me and she said, I don't know why I'm doing this and I don't know what for, but I really felt the urge to do it. And she was looking at her family, at the relationships with her sons, what she could still do for them and so on. And we worked together for a while, and she did 2 travels that she always wanted to do during that time, and she always came back and we worked some more. And then I heard from her that she had cancer, and was 2 or 3 weeks later she really died of that. But what made me somehow at ease and at peace was that she didn't know why, but she wanted to deal with stuff, and she had done it, and then she could go. So something like that I find so touching.
Wow. That's amazing, because she didn't know what was coming.
No, she didn't. But maybe, in a way, she did.
Some part of her knew.
Her body knew.
Yes, that's right. And it's amazing that she was able to resolve what needed to be resolved in time.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You did mention relationships, and I think this is very interesting. In one of our episodes, maybe not the one that you listened to, but Bianca and I talked about the holistic psychologist, and Nicole Lapira has published, I think, a few books and has a lot of posts online on Instagram all about attachment theory, and has shared a lot of her personal stories, and she's very focused on giving people a holistic approach to how they deal with relationships. So when I came across her, I was fascinated and intrigued, and I found the way that she presented just small bite-sized pieces of information to be very helpful for looking at attachment theory and the kinds of attachment problems. But I think just knowing about it doesn't necessarily help people. They can say, oh, I have the avoidant attachment type, or you have this type of attachment. But then when they go and find someone, they're still finding the kind of person that's no good for them. And as you said, this could be related to trauma or to neglect, things like that. Would you be able to share with our listeners how our childhood and interpretation of it impacts on our ability to find love as an adult? And if someone knows they have these issues, what can they do to improve their chances and hopefully get to some kind of success?
Well, it is said that the first 3 years of your life are those that impregnate you the most. And the problem with that is that you don't remember what happened to you during that time or how you were treated. So if you have relationship issues and you feel that they come up again and again, it would be a good idea to think maybe it has something to do with how I grew up or what happened to me during my childhood, and then find somebody who is good in these attachment issues and let yourself be guided. But also, I think I have a lot of clients who come and they know already everything about attachment theory, about trauma therapy, about this approach and that approach. Sometimes they know more than I do, or very often, because they are so eager to find a way to heal that they really soak it up wherever they get it.
Sure.
But then again, very often it is the work that has to be done is really allowing yourself to feel it, not only to know it with your mind, but allowing yourself to feel it. And once you have done that, you can find a different path. So
very interesting. I guess there's no quick fix as well.
No, unfortunately, no. Everybody that's coming into my practice, and especially if it's connected with trauma, everybody, of course, would love to. One client said, "How many sessions do I need? And if I send you a paper with my whole biography, will it be quicker?" And that's the thing with trauma. You have to build up a relation with the person, also the therapist, and then you have to make different experiences. And when you have made different experiences, you can deal with stuff and with yourself differently. You start loving yourself more. You start being milder to yourself if you do things that you didn't want to do. If you have experienced that somebody that cares for you is saying, okay, you've done it again. Okay, don't beat yourself up about it. Let's just see, first of all, you realized it, and what can you do next time in order to prevent it from happening automatically. So if you make these sort of experiences, and you have to make them again and again and again, then change is on the way.
I see. So then they need to come into that space and see a different approach so they can take those feelings out into their daily life and start to see change that way.
And most of what you do, you learn it maybe, or you get an impulse in therapy, in the session, but what is going to work is what you are doing with it in your everyday life. So you have to go out and make these experiences and in order to change. It's not happening in the session, it's happening in your life.
Yes, but then they need to come back so they can keep having that connection with the space that is facilitating the change.
Exactly. And also the person where they know this person really wants to see how I change and wants to witness it. You need a witness if you have gone through something really hard. And also you need somebody who says, okay, this, you are not happy with this, but look at what you've done there. And look at, because we always look at the faults we make, at the mistakes, and we always are, or very often we are too hard on ourselves. So it also needs somebody who says, yes, yeah, but stop it. No, look at that, what you did there.
Yes.
That was great. And in half a year earlier, you wouldn't have been able to do that.
Right.
So,
to encourage you.
To
with
encourage
your progress.
you, because it takes time to heal from trauma, it also needs somebody who's encouraging you again and again on your journey.
I see.
And that can be a partner if he's or she is well equipped. And that can be a therapist. It also can be your best friend if it depends.
Right. But you need that space and the support.
Yes.
So having heard a little bit about how you offer this space, does that mean that if we create space for our friends and encourage them, that we're also helping them to change?
Yes, undoubtedly. And I think it's the philosophy behind it. It is what it is. And also not judging, just taking it the way it is, not judging the other person, but listening to it. And also not, I would even say, bullshitting.
Yeah,
by saying,
right.
Be authentic and honest, but don't say, yeah, but you should have done it this way, or you should have been better that way. Just listen, actively listening, and just being there for the other person is the best gift we can give one another.
I like what you said about not jumping to give people advice. When we're hurting or we're distressed, we don't want to be told what to do.
Exactly. It doesn't help because we're not in a space to hear that. What we want is to be seen with what's happening with us.
And compassion.
Compassion, exactly.
I know we've talked a lot about a variety of different things, and maybe we've covered on like not judging people and acceptance and these things that can help us have a happy life. But if you were to summarize, let's say for maybe someone who doesn't have trauma, or they think they don't have trauma, who feels relatively successful, and they were to ask you, okay, Katharina, what would you say are the top tips for me to have my best life, a happy life? What would you tell them?
Be kind to yourself. Be kind with others. And connect with yourself, with others, with your body, with the nature. Stay connected, or create connection if you're not connected. And I think whatever there is that life is throwing at you, you might be able to deal with it.
I love that. We can't control the things that are going to come our way. Majority of our experiences we don't have control over, but it's that compassion for ourselves and others and the connection that is built off of that can give us our best chance.
Yeah, and that can carry us through life and feel satisfied.
I love that. So we've talked about a lot of things. We've discussed your background, what inspired you to help people, and also the causes of trauma, different types of therapies and methods that people can adopt, some stories of transformation, and also how people can find love and fulfillment and a happy life. I'm sure our listeners really enjoyed this session, and I want to thank you, Katharina, for joining us as well. To our listeners, please remember that the path to your best reality is in your hands to create when you become conscious.